Welcome to a brand new episode of the Jampack Report today for May the 12th of 2020. Of course, if you are brand new to the show, this is a daily gaming news podcast meant to bring you the hottest news you need to know from around the industry. Hosted on YouTube and podcast services around the world 5 days a week, it's your one-stop shop for the hottest news you need to know. And today was packed full of news, specifically the fact that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remaster is going to be coming out this September. An impromptu live stream hosted by industry figure Geoff Keighley has just confirmed one of gaming's worst-kept secrets. Classic PlayStation skateboarding sims Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 are being remastered for PS4, PC, and Xbox One. The announcement is the first of many Summer Game Fest reveals that Keighley has planned in lieu of events such as E3 and Gamescom. And a fun fact, it's also Tony Hawk's 52nd birthday today. Nice timing and happy birthday, Tony. The remaster is being developed by Vicarious Visions and will include the original courses, skaters, modes, and most surprisingly, soundtracks that featured in the original PS1 titles, so it looks like publisher Activision has shelled out the cash for a fresh round of licensing. While almost everything in-game has been recreated from the ground up, the developer has been able to adapt the original physics code for the new engine and will be pushing as hard as possible for a one-to-one experience when compared to the original games. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was an enormous hit upon release in 1999, and though the series would go on to see numerous highs and lows, there is no denying that the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 are bona fide classics, titles that are primed to make a welcome comeback. I can hear Goldfinger already. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 launches September the 4th on PS4, PC, and Xbox One for $39.99, and pre-ordering the game will bag you early access, giving you the opportunity to take the classic warehouse course out for a spin later this summer. So first and foremost, thank God. For those that don't know, I'm a huge Tony Hawk's Pro Skater fan. I grew up playing THPS 2, and of course I went on to own every other game, and I played through most of them front to back. It really is just an iconic piece of nostalgia in my mind and in the minds of many others that were born and grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s. Of course, this is something we've been talking about for a while, so it's not necessarily a surprise to see it coming, but the marketing surrounding it was quite funny. If you follow a lot of celebrities, Ninja is the one that comes to mind. You can text a number, and technically he will text you back, although it's essentially just a giant texting list that he sends out mass text to. Tony Hawk has a similar kind of thing, and so this announcement was actually made early via that initial text, which went out to a lot of Tony Hawk fans. But the trailer is out now if you do want to give it a look. I'm a big fan of the overall aesthetic of the new game. And of course, I do think they are going to do it justice this time around. There was a remaster of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater earlier on. I believe it came out roughly around 2012-ish. And of course, technology has advanced to the point where that could even be justifiably remastered. But this is rebuilt from the ground up, as the article did say, now in stunning 4K, and it even has some content additions as well. There are going to be more skateboarders, all of the good stuff you would expect. And of course, that original soundtrack is a very big deal. That is something that has been holding the franchise back in the last few years because it's incredibly difficult to actually get access to some of that music because of licensing restrictions. And so to be able to go back in and re-experience this legend, by all means, it's going to be probably the highlight of my 2020. I really hope they do it justice, and of course the physics. Oh, I cannot wait to experience those physics. But first and foremost, happy birthday to Mr. Tony Hawk, and on top of that, if you want to pick it up, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, they're both going to be coming in one big bundle to the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and the PC later this year. Fingers crossed for some backwards compatibility, which I would assume it's going to have natively. At least that's what we can read into from the announcements that have been made so far about the next-gen consoles. But moving on, Sony has announced a new PlayStation Studios brand for its first-party PS5 games. Sony has announced a new PlayStation Studios brand that it will be using for its first-party exclusives going forward as a way to let customers know that a game comes from one of Sony's in-house development teams. Sony's various studios already technically exist under the Sony Interactive Entertainment Worldwide Studios organization, which has its own logo, but the new branding is simpler and more focused on the PlayStation brand. It can also help Sony easily highlight exclusive games for customers who may not know that Sony owns Polyphony Digital, famous for Gran Turismo, Naughty Dog of Uncharted and The Last of Us fame, Insomniac, famous for Spider-Man and other games, including Ratchet & Clank, Sony Santa Monica Studio, of course, being God of War, and Media Molecule, as well as Sucker Punch, both famous for Infamous and Ghost of Tsushima, and of course, Media Molecule being big on Little Big Planet. But the new branding also gives Sony an easy way to differentiate its first-party exclusives from Microsoft's, which have their own overarching Xbox Game Studios branding and logo to highlight first-party titles for Xbox consoles. The Marvel Studios like opening animation pans over the iconic PlayStation face button icons, which are overlaid with characters from first-party games like Uncharted, Little Big Planet, God of War, Ratchet & Clank, Horizon Zero Dawn, and The Last of Us. The new animation will be featured in various forms at the beginning of games, trailers, and commercials starting this fall, alongside the launch of the PlayStation 5. That means that upcoming games like The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima will not feature the new branding just yet. So this is going to be the look of it. This is 17 seconds of what you can expect whenever you dive into a PlayStation exclusive this fall. And of course, this is something that is developed in-house. It's going to be your Horizon Zero Dawn, your God of War 2, your, again, Gran Turismo, whatever Media Molecule may be working on. That's what you are going to be seeing at the beginning of that. And again, it looks like it's going to be pretty concise, cohesive branding. And I think that's something that is going to be beneficial going into the future, because you see, again, Xbox Game Studios branding, you see big AAA games that are getting these releases, and so it's nice to be able to have an icon that signifies, hey, this is the quality you are going to be getting. This is a PlayStation game. Because if you look at Spider-Man, if you look at God of War, if you look at The Last of Us, if you look at Uncharted, they are all of a pedigree that puts them in the same realm as each other. And you can look at a lot of third-party games, and quite frankly, right off the bat, you can identify they are not in the same wheelhouse. And that's perfectly fine. It's difficult to live up to what Sony holds in its first-party studio. But it is nice to be able to look at a game and say, oh, that's going to be good. Because if you look at stuff like Ghost of Tsushima, we are going to be getting a lot more information on that in a couple of days, but you can already identify that's going to be something that's way different than another game. However, as time goes on, it does hold a lot of potential to have that name tarnished. If you look at something like Days Gone, or even if you look at something like Death Stranding, although both of those games are fine in their own regard, they might not necessarily be as well received as something like a Ghost of Tsushima, as an Infamous, as a Spider-Man, as a God of War. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that brand grows and evolves over the years. But it is nice to see Sony finally stepping up and saying, hey, let's go ahead and drop the SIE Worldwide Studios situation and pick up that PlayStation Studios branding. Speaking of internal PlayStation games, Ghost of Tsushima is getting a state of play later on this week. Ghost of Tsushima is set to be released on PS4 on July 17th, and developer Sucker Punch will be showing off the game in a Sony State of Play this week. PlayStation has announced the first State of Play of 2020 will air on Thursday, May 14th at 1 p.m. Pacific Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, dedicated entirely to Ghost of Tsushima, the PS4 exclusive from the Infamous and Sly Cooper developers. According to the PlayStation blog, the State of Play is still being finalized, but clocks in around 18 minutes long at the moment. But to set expectations, Sony confirms this State of Play will not feature any PS5 news or updates. Instead, it is entirely focused on the upcoming open-world adventure. Ghost of Tsushima recently had its release date pushed from June to July after Sony delayed The Last of Us Part 2 and Marvel's Iron Man VR. While Ghost is set to be released in just a couple of months, we have gotten a few scant looks at gameplay overall. The story trailer above was our most recent look, with an in-depth trailer at 2019's The Game Awards offered a unique look at Ghost of Tsushima's gory gameplay. Of course, Ghost of Tsushima is, as of now, the last currently scheduled major first-party exclusive set for PS4 ahead of PlayStation 5's planned holiday 2020 release, and you can stay tuned to IGN, or you can stay tuned here to the Jampack Report if you do want the latest whenever the news comes out. So, Here we go, a state of play that is featuring Ghost of Tsushima, and I think this is a good sign for that game. For those that don't know, this is one of my most anticipated games of 2020, very much so looking forward to this, because it's the Assassin's Creed feudal Japan combo that we've been wanting for a very long time, and I think it's going to be received very well if the game is as good as it seems like it's going to be right now. Of course, Sony has been largely quiet surrounding the game, and I think that is a good sign because now they are finally coming out and saying, hey, check it out. Here is going to be an in-depth deep dive, 18 minutes of information about Ghost of Tsushima. Give it the spotlight a bit because few people know this game is coming out. If you look at the general gaming population, it has not gotten much publicity, and I think that's something that could harm it in the long run, no matter how good the game actually is. So again, May 14th at 1 p.m. Pacific Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, if you want to tune in and check out that gameplay, which I am sure is going to be some kind of premiere or upload on YouTube as well as potentially on other services. But you can stay tuned to the outlet, of course, PlayStation on Twitter, if you did want to keep up with the latest. Moving on, I want to talk about something that I believe is worth mentioning here because Assassin's Creed Valhalla is 30 FPS on the Xbox Series X. Now, I want to make something very clear. I'm not entirely sure that I believe this, but we'll talk about that more in a moment. It appears that, at least right now, Assassin's Creed Valhalla will run at the same frame rate across all console generations. The highly anticipated Assassin's Creed Valhalla just can't seem to catch a break. After the disappointment of the gameplay trailer and news that the Legend of Beowulf mission is a Season Pass exclusive, we now learn of another disappointing fact. You may remember that Ubisoft and Microsoft did not touch on the frame rate Valhalla will run at on Xbox Series X, despite making a point to mention it for other games, such as Dirt 5's 120 FPS. It turns out, at least as things stand, the game will run at the standard 30 FPS frame rate it's always played at, even on Xbox Series X. Ubisoft confirmed to Eurogamer Portugal that Assassin's Creed Valhalla will have a frame rate of at least 30 FPS on Xbox Series X, as will run at a 4K resolution. Ubisoft has always been committed to exploring new technologies, taking advantage of the capabilities of new consoles to deliver the most immersive experience possible, which is why we are excited to be collaborating with Microsoft to bring Assassin's Creed Valhalla to the Xbox Series X, the Google translated statement reads. Currently, we can guarantee that Assassin's Creed Valhalla will run at least 30 FPS. Assassin's Creed Valhalla will benefit from faster loading times, allowing players to immerse themselves in history and the world without friction. Finally, Assassin's Creed Valhalla will benefit of improved graphics made possible by the Xbox Series X, and we cannot wait to see the beautiful world we're creating in stunning 4K resolution. We will have a lot more to show you about Assassin's Creed Valhalla in the near future, so stay tuned for more information soon. The wording does leave room for there to be an alternate mode with a higher frame rate target, but it is nonetheless disappointing to see it as not being a priority. Flaunting 4K is also not the big selling point it used to be, thanks to checkerboard rendering and other upscaling techniques used in abundance on PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, both of which have delivered near 4K visuals already. For now, we have to wait until more details are revealed, and Ubisoft has confirmed it's hosting an E3-style presentation in July, which we talked about on yesterday's episode of the Jampack Report. So, I'm not entirely sure this translation is accurate, and I want to make it clear, it very well could be, and it would not surprise me because I am sure that Ubisoft is still struggling with complete optimization even with this new hardware. But let's assume that it is true. This is a very bad piece of news because Assassin's Creed Valhalla would be beautiful at 60 FPS, and it's a shame to see that they are unable to confirm that it is going to be locked in at 60 FPS. Because that is the general selling point of the next generation of consoles. 4K 60. That is going to be the baseline expectation because that's already been subliminally set. You need to be able to achieve that, and if Ubisoft can't hit that, that could be a bit foreboding as to what the other gaming developers are going to be able to create and what they are going to be able to do with this new generation of hardware. I just don't know if it's going to be able to hit the expectations that fans have if this is in fact going to be the precedent, because if you can't hit 30 FPS in 2020, how is this console going to be holding up in 2028? You know, you really have to think in the future when you're developing some kind of new generation console. However, to round out today's show, Schwarzenegger is coming to Predator Hunting Grounds. You will be able to play as Dutch on May the 26th. For the first time in 33 years, Arnold Schwarzenegger will reprise the role of Dutch from 1987's Predator movie. On May 26th, you will be able to play as Major Alan Schaefer in multiplayer shooter Predator Hunting Grounds, provided you are willing to buy the game's upcoming paid DLC. On the same day, developer IllFonic plans to release free downloadable content that will detail what Dutch has been up to since the events of the original Predator through a series of collectible audio logs. Unlike the records that are already in the game, you will earn these by leveling up your account, so you need to try and find them. So no need to try and find them in the middle of a match. You'll be preoccupied with Predator in the middle of the match. As part of the paid DLC, you also get early access to the QR5 Hammerhead rifle and Dutch's knife. According to Entertainment Weekly, Schwarzenegger recorded his lines about a month before the states like California enacted shelter-in-place orders, so you will be able to hear the actor saying things like reload in this trademark Austrian accent. While it has been a while since Schwarzenegger reprised the role of Dutch, the actor is no stranger to licensing his likeness for use in video games. In 2019, NetherRealm Studios released DLC that let you play as Terminator T-800 in Mortal Kombat 11, and by the sounds of it, we could see the Predator alumni returning to the franchise in the future DLC for Hunting Grounds. Neat, because Arnold Schwarzenegger is such a big part of Predator Hunting Grounds, it would be a shame to see him not included in the game. He was, of course, the star of the movie whenever it came out back in the day, and so to see him getting back into the game is something that I think is a very good move. I also do want to mention that I forgot to add one story that just popped into my mind. Iron Man VR is going to be coming on July the 3rd if you were interested in this brand new VR experience. Sony delayed Iron Man VR a second time in early April due to the impact of COVID-19, and it has now found a new release date for the VR shooter. All going well, it will be available on PSVR on July the 3rd. Developer Camouflage pushed back the game from February 28th to May 15th because it needed more time to deliver on our vision and meet high expectations, and then everything began to snowball with COVID-19. So hey, if you want to dive into the world of Iron Man VR, again coming out July the 3rd to PlayStation VR exclusively. But that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. If you enjoyed this one, drop me a like down below and let me know what stories caught your eye today. And are you going to be tuning into the State of Play later on this week? On top of that, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Are you as excited as I am? Because I, my friends, am very pumped. But until tomorrow, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I will talk to you soon, and peace.